Okay, so I have been spending a lot of time thinking about where I'm going to go with this. I had a lot of ideas. I actually have a ton of deleted videos on this computer right now about of just me rambling on about random things. But after putting a lot of thought into it, I think that me as a writer reflects really who I am as a person. I think I am very structured, even though I will talk about this later. But I think I've gotten a lot better at stepping out of that structured comfort zone as this class went on, especially as you see, I think in my lit review. But I'll get to that later. I also think as a writer, I'm very good at just hearing things and how they sound and finding good ways to make everything sound good. I like when things sound pretty or sound like they flow really well together, and I think that reflects in my writing because I do actually sit here and read my papers out loud to myself, and think oh, what sounds best. And I think that you can really see that in my writing because I honestly think that I choose good words and good sentence variations to make the writing sound pretty, and I think that is one of my major strengths as a writer. um, Going back to my structured, um, I think you can really see how structured I was, especially at the beginning of the semester, because I had come in from high school where I was told pretty much this is how you write a paper. You will have pretty much 5 paragraphs, since that was pretty much all you wrote in high school. I don't really know. I maybe wrote 2 or 3 papers that weren't the 5 paragraph formatting, and you will open with a hook, a question, an imagined scene or something, and then you'll explain briefly whatever you're talking about, whether it be a book, you'll briefly introduce a book, just as an example, and then you'll have your thesis statement, and your thesis statement will consist of your argument or your statement of where you are, and then you'll say as demonstrated by, and then typically you'll give 3 of your main arguments, and those 3 main arguments will be in the orders of your paragraphs that you're going to follow with, and then you'll have a conclusion. And I was very structured, and I knew that this was a good structure, obviously, because I got good grades all through high school. I got good grades all through the beginning of English, and I was using this formula, and I never really had been told I need to push myself past going through this formula. And I think that's one thing you really see me grow throughout this class, especially in this red folder, and especially through my theses, because my first thesis statement is literally a reflection of what I just said. I state my argument, and I do as demonstrated by, and say my 3 arguments, and it reads: inmates and state prisons throughout the United States face inhumane conditions, as demonstrated by cases of overcrowding, violence, and a lack of health care. And that's just very dum dum dum, it's a good thesis statement, but it doesn't really go beyond what I have to do, and something I kind of was forced to do, and I'm glad I was forced to do it because I feel like I'm a much better writer from it. Was I was kind of forced to be okay, step away from this exact structure and find different ways to say things, and you're going to find different ways to format things, and you're going to have a paper that doesn't even require a thesis statement. And I think you can really see my growth throughout this class, not only through doing things like the thesis worksheet, but going through the writing center and talking to other people, because eventually I was asked to add a counter argument into this paper, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do that. I've never had to have a counter argument in a thesis before. Do I even have a counter argument in a thesis before? And I got to talk to different writers. I got to talk to Cam in the writing center about it. And this is where my sounding, where I think my strength of being able to hear things and make them sound good comes in, because I got to hear everyone's different comparisons, and I got to think about which one I thought sounded the best and which one I thought would reflect my writing the best, and all that. And I was able to do that with the work of other writers, which I think is a really cool idea, because I got to learn from not only people in my class, but people that are already working in the writing center. And the final thesis I got from all that stress that I was freaking out about, because I was oh my gosh, this is my structure. I actually like a lot more than my structured thesis, because I thought it painted a much better picture of not only the topic of the paper, but the just everything about the paper. So I'm going to read that too. Although many prisoners in the United States live out their sentence under tolerable conditions, many are forced to endure the issues of overcrowding, violence, and a lack of health care. And one thing that I never would have done if I wasn't told I have to do something beyond my basic structure was I would never put many others are forced to endure. And I think that's a very moving part of that thesis that just adds a lot more like vivid imagery, which is something that even my Elon response said I was good at, like something he loved about that writing was that he felt like he was just like in it with the prisoners, and he was like there was a lot of great imagery, like he made several comments about throughout the paper. So I think that's another good strength of mine, is like my strengths, and that goes with like the sound, is I am put like good words I like. So yeah, basically I just think that this folder does a good job representing me as a writer and how much I've grown as a writer throughout this class. And thanks for teaching me so much. See you next semester.